If you've spent the last 3 nights rehearsing your interview answers until they sound perfectly polished, perfectly logical, and perfectly structured, I want you to stop for a second, because in 2026, that perfection is exactly what's getting you rejected. I know how it feels. You're sitting there, staring at a screen, trying to fit your entire career into these neat little boxes called the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result. We were all told this was the gold standard. But here's the reality nobody is telling you. That gold standard has become a commodity. It's become a pattern that machines can replicate better than you can. Think about this for a moment. 88% of hiring managers today say they can instantly detect an AI-generated interview response or a resume that's been optimized by a bot. And 75% of resumes, they're being tossed out by AI filters before a human ever sees them, simply because they look too homogenized. They look like every other perfect candidate. When you sound perfect, you sound like a script. And when you sound like a script, the AI hired to find you flags you as low signal. It thinks you're just another ChatGPT output. Let that sit for a second. The very thing you're doing to try and win is actually triggering a digital red flag. I've seen this happen to some of the most talented people I know. They have the experience, they have the drive, but they're being ghosted because they're playing by rules that expired 2 years ago. So if the perfect script is now a liability, what are the 2% of candidates who actually land the interview doing? How are they proving they aren't just a machine-generated profile? It's not about being more polished, it's about being more human. Here's where it gets really interesting. Recruiters are exhausted. They're drowning in a sea of perfect candidates who all say the same things. They don't want to see the factory output anymore. They want to see what I call human friction. They want to see the rough edges. They want to see how you think when the automation fails and the playbook goes out the window. In the industry right now, we're seeing a massive shift. 0.67% of recruiters are now prioritizing growth mindset and agility over how many years of experience you have in a specific tool. Why? Because the half-life of a technical skill has dropped to just 2.5 years. Think about that. Half of what you know today will be obsolete in 30 months. This means companies aren't hiring you for what you did in 2023. They're hiring you for your skill velocity, how fast you can learn, unlearn, and solve problems that don't have a manual yet. We call this high-agency storytelling. It's a shift from results-only to discovery-based narratives. Most people focus on the result because they think that's what matters. But in 2026, the result is the easy part. The AI can get the result. The value is in the discovery. The moment you realize the standard process was broken and you had to make a human judgment call. Moving from I did X to I discovered Y sounds simple, but it changes everything about how you're perceived. It moves you from being a resource to being a thinker. Now, this is the part that changes everything. When you talk about the friction, the mistakes, the pivots, the moments of uncertainty, you aren't showing weakness. You're showing proof of human. You're showing that you have adaptability, or what we call AQ. And in this market, AQ is the only currency that isn't inflating. Now let me walk you through what this actually looks like in the hot seat. I want to give you a side-by-side comparison so you can hear the difference. Here's a commodity answer. This is what 98% of people are saying right now. I implemented a new project management workflow that increased team efficiency by 20% over 6 months. It sounds fine, right? It's logical. It has a metric, but to a recruiter in 2026, it sounds like a template. It doesn't tell them anything about you. Now, listen to the high-agency version of that same story. 3 weeks into the project, I discovered a hidden flaw in our automated reporting loop. The data looked good on paper, but it was actually masking a bottleneck that was costing us 50 kg a week in lost time. I realized the standard software wasn't going to catch it, so I decided to override the system, manually audited the last month of logs, and pivoted the team to a new framework. Do you hear the difference? The first answer is about a result. The second answer is about a decision. It shows you identifying a problem, doubting the system, and taking ownership of the messy middle. That is what 83% of global enterprises are looking for when they use AI to screen for contextual intelligence. They don't want keywords, they want to see the black box of your brain. I recently worked with a candidate. Let's call her Sarah. She was a transition orchestrator. She stopped using those scripted STAR answers and started using this proof of human framework.
She focused on the non-SOP problems, the ones that aren't in the standard operating procedure. The result? She secured a 56% wage premium. Why? Because the company realized they weren't just hiring a manager. They were hiring an insurance policy against AI failure. Stop saying you managed things. Start explaining how you intercepted failure. That's the difference between a job seeker and a high-value consultant.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's great for my wins, but what about the parts of my career I'm worried about? the gaps, the pivots, or the projects that just didn't work out. This is where most people get defensive. They try to hide the failures or polish the gaps until they disappear. But in 2026, a failure isn't a red flag. It's actually the only time you can prove you have the skill velocity that companies are desperately bidding for. We're entering a market where 70% of the skills required for current jobs will disappear by 2030. If you can show that you successfully unlearned an old way of doing things and pivoted quickly, you are more valuable than someone who has been an expert in one thing for a decade. So when I look at data for AI-augmented domain experts, they are commanding a 40% higher billing rate. Not because they know more, but because they are better at pivoting. So when they ask you about a failure, don't give them a fake weakness like "I worked too hard." Give them a real pivot. Say, "I spent 6 months building a strategy based on X until I realized X was no longer true. I had to unlearn that entire framework in 2 weeks to save the project." That shows you have the stomach for the 2026 economy. It shows you aren't brittle. If you have a gap in your resume, don't apologize for it. Frame it as a period of intentional skill velocity. You weren't out of work. You were aggressively retooling for a shift in the industry. The candidates who win aren't the ones who never fell. They're the ones who can explain exactly how they got back up and what they unlearned in the process. We've covered a lot of ground. You have the framework, you have the mindset, but how do we turn this into a job offer by the end of the month? The market is getting harder. Average job searches for white-collar roles have stretched to nearly 70 days. Only 2% of applicants are getting the invite. You cannot afford to be pretty good at the old way. So here's your homework for the next 48 hours. I want you to open your resume and find your most recent role. Look at your bullet points. I want you to pick one result bullet, the one that says responsible for X and achieved Y, and I want you to delete it. Replace it with a discovery bullet using this formula: the flaw you found plus the decision you made plus the pivot. Don't just tell me you increased sales. Tell me you discovered the lead gen bot was hallucinating, so you shut it down and rebuilt the manual outreach strategy. Then, I want you to prepare one high-agency story for your next interview. One story where the script failed, things got messy, and you had to use your human intuition to find the way out. This isn't easy. It's much harder than memorizing a STAR template. But for the candidate who shows their why instead of just their what, that 56% salary premium isn't just a possibility, it's waiting right on the other side of the script. You've got this. The market hasn't left you behind. It's just waiting for the real you to show up. Go audit those narratives. I'll be here when you're ready for the next step.